Like Tyler said, this is our second week looking at the simple life. And this morning we're going to look at stuff. And that might seem, how does that affect my life? But stuff can bring a complication. It can bring layers in our life that we didn't expect, and it can really mess with us. So let's begin in Proverbs 24, verse 30. And it says this: I went by the field of the lazy man, and by the vineyard of the man devoid of understanding. And there it was, all overgrown with thorns. Say the word thorns. I want you to hold on to that. Don't poke anyone with it, but hold on to that. The surface was covered with needles. The stone wall was broken down, and when I saw it, I considered it well. I looked on it, and I received instruction. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. So shall your poverty come like a prowler, and your need like a armed man. Bart was 47 years old, and Bart was up on a Sunday morning at 8:15 a.m., which was strange for Bart because Saturday and Sunday were holy days, and he would always sleep to at least 11 o'clock. But he was up early this morning because the last 3 years, Bart's wife had been on to him about doing something about the backyard. The front yard was picture perfect, one of the prettiest houses in the neighborhood, but there were some backyard issues that she wanted him to deal with. And so finally, the last 3 months, he just kind of would roll around in bed and try to create a game plan. And here he was. He was going to surprise her this day and begin to fix those things in the backyard. So he got up, and his backyard, let me just describe this a little bit. It had this really well-built cedar 8-foot fence, wood fence all the way around it, in great shape. You couldn't see in. It was still in great shape after 20 years. There's about a third of an acre back there that was completely enclosed. And so his idea, I'm going to go through the side gate and start working on those issues. So he got to that side gate all ready to go in, and he couldn't get in the gate. Turned the handle, like push. And finally, after 15 minutes, he got enough space to slide in. And he realized what was keeping it closed was there were some box springs leaning up against that gate. He remembered that about 5-6 years ago. He had a couple box springs he put up against that little gate, and he was going to take it to the dump, but he never had. And vines and thorns, say thorns, they were there, and all of a sudden he was getting cut up a little bit. There was a couple trees. One of them was actually growing into the gutter, and they knew he had to do something about it. So he squeezed back out of the gate, and he saw his neighbor, and he borrowed the neighbor's lopper and tree saw. He knew he had a lopper and a tree saw, but that'd probably take better than half the morning to find it. So he got back in there, and he started chopping and cutting. After about 2 hours, he was able to get the 2 box springs out. But by this time, he was just covered with mosquito bites. He'd been spooked a couple of times because in one of the box springs, there was a couple of mice nests. And so he was tired, and he was hot, 2 hour, and he said, well, I'm going to go back into the house and get a cold one. He popped the lid off, and he decided to get on the back porch, and he opened the door of the back porch, and not a lot of room to stand on the back porch. It was a pretty good-sized deck, but, it was kind of, there was a lot of stuff back there. In fact, for about the last 10 years, they'd always kept the curtain closed that looked over the backyard on the back porch because there was quite a few, cookers, and there was a backup to the backup gas grill, and there was a couple, and there wasn't a lot of space on that back porch. And he began to think. I remember when I moved here 20 years ago, this was a 3rd acre, beautiful yard, and I remember in the very back there was a carport, two-car carport, lean-to. And he remembered him and his dad bringing a couple project cars to work on back there. And then he also remembered the 2 motorcycles, 2 used beat-up motorcycles. He bought one, got another one free to work on, and a couple mowers he had back there. And that's when it began, and the backyard began to shrink. He always remembered there was a beautiful water feature in that yard where you could hear the water run, and there was a whole bunch of goldfish in it, and he hadn't seen that for years, but he knew it was still back there because sometimes in the dead of evening, he could hear the water still running. He often wondered if those goldfish were still alive out there, but there was no way to get it. And all of a sudden, he was just overcome, and he realized it would take a month of Sundays just to make a dent in this. And he said, I'm so tired, this is wearing me out. And he crawled back in bed and slept till 1 o'clock that day. This story, this proverb, every Hebrew child had heard this. They'd heard it through their life, and they knew how to keep that outside, as Tyler spoke, of that cup clean, of stuff issues. But Jesus comes along, and of course, Jesus wants to look on the inside of the cup. Remember, when he gets in the Beatitudes, he starts talking, or Sermon on the Mount, he talks about adultery, and he says, hey, the issue starts on the inside of the cup. When you start lusting after another person, that's where you need to repent. That's where you need to get serious. Remember when he talked about murder, and most everyone said, I haven't murdered anyone this week. I didn't even murder anyone last week. But God says, look on the inside of the cup. There's anger. There's a spirit of murder in your heart. You need to deal with it. So Jesus takes this stuff issue to a different level in Mark 4. And let's go ahead and read Mark 4. It says this, and he said to them, do you not understand this parable? This is a parable of the seed and the sower. How then will you understand all parables? This to me has always been the granddad of all parables. If we don't, there's a truth here. I'm just going to mention the truth before we go forward. There's a truth here that you've got to understand, or you'll never get the word in your heart. It says the sower sows the word. He preaches, ministers, you hear God's word, Jesus' words, and these are the ones by the wayside where it's sown. When they hear, Satan comes immediately and takes away the word that was sown in your heart. There are people in here right now that you hear bits and pieces of this message and you think it's really good, but before it's over, you're going to get distracted. You're going to begin to think about what that person's wearing in front of you. You're going to think about that person's haircut and think, gosh, who did that to them? You're going to get distracted. I'm going to do something, or, there might be something's growing off the side of their face or out of their nose, or, or PV's pronouncing something wrong yet again, or whatever. And almost like immediately it'll be stolen from you. And you got to understand that, because Satan doesn't want these words of life to get in you. Then he goes on, these are those likewise sown on stony ground, who when they've heard the word immediately receive it with gladness. And they have no root in themselves, and it's so endure for a time. Afterwards, when tribulation or persecution arises for the word's sake, immediately they are offended. There's others of you, you'll catch something in something Tyler or Darren or myself, even this morning, you might grab something. This is so good. This is going to change my life. And all of a sudden, by the time you get to the parking lot, your mate's going to say something that just irritates you. Your kids are going to do something. There's going to be someone who does something in traffic. You're going to lose your temper. Something's going to happen, and you're going to get upset. Forget that. I won't try that again. And I've had that happen. I remember a few weeks back, Tyler, man, he preached, and I said, oh, this is really powerful, and, this is going to make a difference in my relationship with my sister. I was so excited. And before the day was out, man, I chunked that idea. I mean, seriously. And so the word wasn't able to get into me. Then he goes on, and this is where we're going to start focusing on. Now, these are the ones that are sown among thorns. You got your thorn? Okay, remember that? You can go in and stick it in the chair next to you and don't worry about it anymore. Among the thorns are the ones that hear the word, and the cares of the world, the deceitfulness of riches or of stuff. When we worry about stuff and we're deceived by stuff and the desire for other stuff, it begins to choke the word and it becomes unfruitful. Things have the ability to choke our lives. Take the breath out of our lives. Sometimes our stuff begins to wear us out. Here's the word, very life-saving power of the word that can make us fruitful, can change our life. And sometimes we start to get stuff in our life that begins to make us unfruitful. Remember Jesus, the rich young ruler, came to him, and he'd done everything right. And Jesus, and he wasn't like Bart. He wasn't like Bart in all this clutter. This rich young ruler, he had everything on a spreadsheet. He had everything in his computer. He knew he had barcodes for everything they owned. Everything was in Rubbermaids. Everything was on shelves. He had his life in great order. But Jesus said, there's something inside the cup. You got a stuff issue in your heart. Outside the cup is clean, but inside there's some stuff. And if you really want to find life, if you want to find that simple life, if you want to find that life that is meaning, I'm going to give you a challenge. Sell it all and follow me. And I've got great treasures. And some people, it's just, and that's where sometimes we struggle. We struggle. And so that's where he's starting to go with this. Now, I started messing with this. I wanted to come up with something a little humorous because I know in a few minutes I'm going to really offend some people. So I figured if I could get them laughing a little bit. So I tried to come up with some points, signs that stuff is deceiving us, okay? I said, let's kind of work on something. I found a couple of them out there, but I kind of compiled these. Number one, sign that stuff is deceiving you or me. You have not been able to park your car in your garage for over 5 years. Just saying. Number two, that one went over really good. You or a family member have gone to the ER after opening a closet. Yeah, okay. That's a little bit better. Number three, you have bought the same item 3 times in the same year. Kind of like Bart, he had the clippers and he had the saw, but, he didn't, in fact, probably had several sets, but he just didn't know where they were at. Number 4, Amazon is your home page. Number 5, you return from Goodwill with more than you took. Man, I took 4 bags, honey. Now, help me unload the trunk. It's full. I'm coming back home. You have built or rented a building to store stuff. I mean, either you made an addition to put, some collection or some room or bump out on the garage or the house, or you're renting storage buildings, at least one, maybe more. Number 7, your dog has anxiety disorder as his pen has become a mini storage unit. It's like, dog's not going to the pen. Yeah, that's because you got all that other stuff in there. Okay, number 5, stuff gets personified. Now, I had this happen. We were in the process of moving, and I had this machine shed and several tons of raccoon poop in it, but there was also a wheelbarrow in it, And so I now had 2 wheelbarrows. And so I was going to take one to the auction, just sell it, and the one actually in the machine shed was really better. And so I'm taking my black one that I've had for 20 years and put it in my garage to sell it. And as I'm getting there, that thing begins kind of talking to me like, we've had such good times together. We have gone through 20 years of lugging stuff, and you're going to take me to the auction and take that other one, And so I actually took really it was the worst one, took it back and took the good one and took it to the auction, because I had this conversation with my wheelbarrow, just simple personification, there. Number 9, you are very aggravated with this message already. Number 10, your mate is very glad you come to church today. Number 11, I just have to throw this one out. I found this one later. You never have had to worry about a robber being under your bed. No, he's in danger. Probably need to call 911 if a robber gets under it. Okay, so anyway, those are some things just to make us think that, do we have a problem? But I want to be clear. I really want to be clear. This is not a sluggard issue. This is not a hoarder issue. This is really a stuff issue, both on the outside and in the inside of the cup. Stuff that deceives and begins to choke the word. Where our stuff starts to let us know that it's important. I will make you happy. You need me. You need more of me. You need something better of me. There's not a problem here. Look elsewhere. I'm special. I add value to your life. I bring great joy to your life. You need to fix me. You need to repair me. You need to keep me maintained. You can't take a day off because I want to spend time with you. And it's not necessarily the abundance of stuff, because sometimes we can suffer with strategic stuff. I have a very dear friend of mine that was a mentor for a number of years. I still talk with him from time to time, and he had a 42-foot sailboat, and this boat was pretty big in his life. I knew there were some issues when he would come to work. We worked together, and it was kind of like he would come from the boat, and then afterwards he'd go back to the boat. And as I got to know his family, I discovered that his wife and his kids didn't like the boat. In fact, whenever they go out, they would get seasick, but he was there a lot. And his nickname was Daco, and I thought that's because he had his doctorate, but it was because he hung around the dock so much they called him Daco. And there was a lot of conversation that happened, and I could see it was affecting his life. He went on a mission trip to Romania, and God spoke to him. One word, boat. He knew right away what it was, and he sold that boat, put it into missions. And I saw the change in this man's life. I saw a fruitfulness come. I saw his ability to move off the coast and go inland because his beloved boat didn't keep him wedged on the shoreline. And I saw God really move in him. There was another man I knew, he 2 doors down from where I worked. He had a business, I had a business there in rural Georgia, and he had this truck. It wasn't just a truck, it was the truck. And everyone knew it was the truck. He parked it out behind the building and, just a bulletproof area with walls around. He'd park it out there, always cleaning it, always vacuuming, always detailing, always the latest tires, everything on the truck. And if you'd ever see him go shopping, he'd park a half mile away and walk because of the truck. And I remember after I moved away from the community, I would get the newspaper, and for about 2 or 3 years, we got that newspaper just to keep it with people. One day, a tornado came through Vienna, Georgia, and on the front page was a picture of the truck with 6 pine trees all around. It was hilarious. I know everyone laughed, but I don't know if he survived that. He wasn't in it, but I don't know if he still survived it because it was the truck. But I want to be clear, this isn't a boat issue, and this isn't a truck issue. Some of you probably need to detail your vehicle today. You might, find a big dumpster and begin detailing it, or if you have a boat, there's nothing wrong with having a boat, having a nice house, having a car, but the question is, does that house have you? Is it maintaining you? Is it part of your identity? Is it controlling you? Is it literally choking you? I picked up a metal detector. We're moving, and there was a piece of property. I wanted to see if there's, and I got a real good buy on eBay, and I wanted to see if there was anything there, And so it was kind of a funny story. When I first got it, I was so excited. I watched it on YouTube, and it talked about the beep, 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 beep. When it does that at a high level real fast, you need to dig there, And then when the thing was all the way over, it tells if it's a valuable metal, beep, 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 beep. And so I was so excited. I remember driving to the property. I got out of the truck and turned it on right away, and right away, beep, 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 beep. I'm thinking, oh my goodness. Can't wait to tell Lori this. As soon as I got out of the truck, right there by the foot of the truck, I discovered something. And I kept going over, and it kept beep, 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 beep. I walked all the way around the truck before I realized it was picking up the truck. That was, but anyway, I learned that, it makes these signals. And sometimes we need to take kind of a treasure walk through our house, and sometimes we can find those things in our life that when we get by, it's beep, 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 because our heart's there. There's a treasure there. At PV, it's in my wife's shoe closet. It's like, but I'm not allowed in there. People have got in trouble and got on restriction for messing around, and the wife says, it's your golf warehouse that you got in the garage. There's a treasure there. So we need to look at these ourselves. And this is one, you can be an agent to take the word out of your mate today. Just like Satan comes immediately. You can immediately get this out of your mate by saying, hey, I'm so glad you're here. You need this message. You need to straighten some stuff. Let the Holy Spirit convict your mate or your child or your parents. And sometimes when we have stuff like that, we need to either sell, give, or reposition. I had a sign when I was cleaning up, moving out of the house, the classic sign, I think you've seen it, don't even think about touching my tools. How many people have ever said, don't even think about touching my tools? I had one of those signs. And there was a period in my life where I think that was true. And I've come off of that. But sometimes that's one sign that something's valuable because you don't want anyone to touch it, anyone near about it. You don't want anyone to talk about it. It's a very sensitive area. And that's a sign that there's an issue there. I stand here today with a tendency to being a stuffaholic. One of the things I always have enjoyed is buying and selling. But there's times that I do a lot of buying and a lot less selling, or it takes a while for me to sell it. I even remember when we built a house from scratch back in 1999, I think it was year 2000, I was still working on this house. And it became such a focus. It had such a choke on me. And we had something happen with one of the kids. I remember nighttime before bed we were talking about this, and all of a sudden I realized that house had taken the breath out of me and prevented me from being the parent I should be. It was like I was absent because I had such focus on that. And I remember crying the hardest I think I've ever cried that night because all of a sudden I realized that stuff had taken the place of one of my children and caused some damage to one of my kids. And it's just like, that can sober you up. I'm very susceptible to this. I think it's in my DNA. My family has always been real bad about personifying items. You know, we've got a lot of antiques in my mom and dad's house, but they're not antiques they bought at the store. They're antiques that's come from the old country. Or there's antiques, you know, they've got a beautiful old painting over the fireplace, but it's just not an old painting. This was an old painting that my great-grandfather was given the day my grandfather was born in Houston, Texas. You know, it's not just a, you know, wash sink, you know, stand with marble and these real cool doors, but it came from Germany. Your grandma Sick, that was her name, brought this over here, you know, and a lot of it is sick, some of the stuff that's happened through the years because they have been personified. There's a story with everything. Same way you can run into land. This is family land. This is family land. You know, we've had this for 4 generations. You know, there's a story, you know, there's no way you move off of this or sell it. It's family land, you know. It's stuff, it's these tools, there's, you know, and all of a sudden it has messed with me. And I've learned many times to break out of it, but it can come back the next day. It can come back the next year. And so this has been an ongoing thing. And as I've got free from it, it's like, whoa. I feel a breath. I feel alive. I feel like my priorities are straight. I remember having a dream one time in 1987, and I had my business going. I was having my first child, and I was so caught up. And in the dream, I dreamed that I was called away to heaven. And as I was going up, I felt all this stuff like, what about this? And as I got up, getting closer to Jesus, I realized, wow, that stuff doesn't matter. But I realized my priorities were so out of whack, and I began seeing people as I went up that I could have ministered to instead of all the business and all the stuff. Cure. Number one, you need to do the treasure test. You need to get your little treasure hunter out there, and when you hear that peep, 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 you need to pay attention to it. One, are you protective of it? Are you protective of it? The first beep, are you protective of it? Is it something that it has to have special prominence? It's got to be in the center of your house. No one can touch it. Don't bring it up or I'm going to get upset about it. That's just like off limits. It's behind glass. We never use it. It's a tool, but we never use it. It's framed behind glass, and it's got, you know, security lights and stuff on it, but you know, no big thing. You're protective of it. Number two, it's personified. We already talked about that. I mean, you've named it, you nicknamed it, you talk to it, and unfortunately, it talks back to you. You're having a regular conversation with it. Number three, the other peep is you're possessive of it. It's like, if you can't have it, you don't want anyone else to have it. You're super possessive of it. We went to a garage sale one time in Georgia, and I'll never forget this. This guy had a bunch of stuff out there for sale, and just like a garage sale, someone asked, hey, would you know, this is $10, would you take 5? And the guy would get really agitated, and he said, nope, that's what it's marked. Either it sells for that, and he said this 3 times while we were there. Either it sells for that, or I'm not going to sell that. At the end of the day, whatever I'm left with, I'm going to put it all, I'm going to bring my bulldozer out, put it in a pile, I'm going to burn every bit of it. It's either that price or it burns. And I'm thinking, wow, that wasn't a pretty picture. And I just saw that guy's possessiveness of it. But sometimes we're that way. If I can't have it, I don't want anyone to have it. It's kind of like when I die, it's going to go to the grave with me. Don't take that off me. Put it in my pyramid, and I'm going to die with it. So if you see any of those things, you have, or I have, a problem with stuff. There's an idol that I've got to deal with. And there's 3 responses that I've learned to do through the years is I need to either sell it. That's the first one. You know, sometimes you say, hey, this is holding too much of a place, too big, let me sell it. Maybe pay off a student loan, you know, send 10 missionaries overseas or something, you know, just sell it. You know, I need to get rid of it. Go on a vacation or something. I need to get it out of my life. That's one option. Another is to give it. And this is huge. I remember one time I had a stockpile of number 5 Stanley planes. I had a bunch of them. And I was kind of proud of it, but then the Holy Spirit started messing with me because I'm just sitting there on them. And I felt the Lord says, really polish these up. I thought I was going to sell them or make money or put them on a shelf. And God says, nah, I'm going to show you people to give them to. And I started gave them all away. I think, you know, you run into a story that Jesus tells, and we've talked about bigger barn disease, where this one guy has this incredible crop comes in that just blows him out of the water. And it says what he looks at this crop, what am I going to do with all this extra seed, all this extra grain, all this extra corn? What am I going to do with it? And the guy says, got the idea. Put a memo out to all my servants. We're going to tear down all the barns, and we're going to build bigger barns so we can store it in. And Jesus called him a fool. And that's a very strong statement. Hebrew, that's like the worst word you can say is to call someone a fool, because the guy didn't realize that the blessing of God had came on him for a purpose. God tests our hearts, and sometimes he'll put something in our hands, and so often our first thing is, I need to cling to it. Like, why all this extra money? Why all this stuff fall in my heart? And many times God has a plan, and he just tests your heart. So let me see if stuff's real in your life. Let me see what your heart's like. And this guy failed the test, and he died that night. He failed that test. And it would have been an incredible time where he could have blessed. But instead, it's like, hey, build bigger barns. Buy more storage units. And sometimes we've got to position ourselves to either sell it or give it. Or the third thing is to reposition it. This is something that has blessed my heart. I want to look at all my stuff and think, am I using it for the kingdom? Am I using it for the kingdom? Or it's just my stuff that I'm possessed of? And I like to think, and this has really blessed my heart. You know, I used to collect all those tools and kind of had the idea, don't touch my tools. But now it's like, hey, someone needs a Sawzall. I got a Sawzall. Someone needs to come use my big bandsaw, my big table saw. Come on over. We'll cut it out. You know, and we can use that. I like to look over my living room. You know, I don't want to build a living room that's just for me, but I want to say, hey, I want some life groups in my living room. I want some people over, and, you know, I want to use my house for the kingdom of God. Everything I go around, can I use it for the kingdom of God? And if it's just for me, you know, that's not good at all. I need to reposition it. I look at all my stuff that way. If it doesn't, if I go over and it starts beep, 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 and I go through that process. And then the third thing, I think that really helps us, is to find that pearl of great price. Sometimes we need to take that hard look, and sometimes we have replaced relationships with stuff. None of us will admit to that. You know, no, I don't love my truck more than my wife. I don't love my house more than my kids. I don't love my tools more than I love, you know, lost people. But sometimes we have. And that's where we've got to realize that what it's all about, the treasure, is with Jesus. And that's where, you know, the rich young ruler, he just didn't get it. He just didn't get it, that there was a cool life on the other side if he could learn to let it go. And so I want to encourage us to take that look. The other thing is family. You know, sometimes it's amazing. Sometimes we get, you know, there's so much stuff. By the time we get all of our computers, all of our mowers and our weed eaters and our, you know, tillers and our, I'm just talking guy stuff. We could be talking about our oven and this appliance and this appliance. And all of a sudden we get so broad that we can spend almost all of our time fixing, cleaning, polishing, maintaining stuff. And if we want a simple life, we need to be willing to say, let me let that go. Let me give that. Let me reposition that. And when you do, you'll find life. And I want to encourage you, don't be afraid to do that. But do not try to do that for your mate. Do not try. Let the Holy Spirit do his work. Keep that thorn. Don't get that thorn out and start sticking your mate. Just keep it in the seat, leave it in your seat, and go home. But let the Lord minister. And he might say something just like Dr. Weston heard, you know, boat or a tool or, you know, shoes or whatever. And don't freak out over that, because there's such great freedom when you do that. Will you stand up with me? If we have any, if I could ask, if we have, you know, some of our leaders to come forward, some of our small group leaders, some of our staff, we're going to take a few minutes just to pray. Something I just put this out there. Some of you haven't found that pearl of great price, and his name is Jesus. You know, I think sometimes we realize that, man, my life is empty. There's a void. And sometimes when I have that void, that's where we say, hey, stuff will make me happy. And some of you have just tried to fill your life with stuff and you found no happiness, no joy. Jesus is the thing that brings you peace, that brings you joy, that brings you purpose. And one of the biggest things, the most important things that we could accomplish here today, and maybe God's been messing with you, and maybe you've kind of had that outside of the cup all covered in religion, but the inside you know you're lost. I want to tell you, today's your day. You can come forward and say, hey, I need Jesus in my life. Will you pray with me? I need a Savior. I need to turn my life around. And that would be the most blessed day you could ever have. It excites heaven. All of heaven rejoices when a soul's saved, when someone comes and they decide to spend eternity with Jesus. So I want to encourage you in that. Maybe you have another need. Maybe you just need someone to pray with you. Maybe there's something going on, but we want to take a few minutes just to pray. And then I'm going to be back up here in just a couple minutes and we'll close the service out. Sing along or come forward or whatever God puts on your heart.